Amen. Let's go. Take it from the top. Let's go. All right, guys, you still got some energy? Yes. Man, every time Nix and his team does these events, they 5 times in size. So next year or next time, you're going to need a public sports stadium or something. So fantastic. Congratulations. Round of applause to the organizers, guys. All right, so I will talk about the biggest mistakes I've done in building a number of companies that have a combined revenue of over 200 million euros a year. And I want to focus on this because I think it's relevant, especially for people that have started businesses and they want to learn from somebody that already kind of has done it. So let me see. All right. The context in which I will talk about these mistakes is based on my experience, which is specifically high growth companies, meaning you start a business and it grows very quickly, right? And in this context, an example of what I mean by high growth or definition of high growth for me is when you start a business, it takes like, let's say, a couple of years to get to your first million in revenue, and then you hit the high growth phase. So let's say, 3 years, you're kind of struggling to figure out the product market fit, the team, the market, etc. And then the next year, you grow in revenue twice to 2 million. Then the year after, it's 4 million. Then the year after, it's 8 million, 15, 20 million, 40 million, and so on. That's what I consider high growth, right? And you might think that, you might have a business where you have never seen such a growth in your life, which is okay, and you might never actually get there, but some of you will, for sure. The good news is that when I speak to business owners that are small business owners, the mistakes that they do are very similar to the mistakes that I have done in my experience, right? So the speed of growth of your business could be different from mine, but the environment could be different, but the mistakes are actually very similar for people that own and run high growth big companies and also small businesses, okay? And so my focus is really to talk about the mistakes not in terms of specific technical things that I've done, but more in terms of the mindset, right, that has led me to those mistakes. So you can maybe recognize this mindset in your own situation, in your own business, and then maybe change this mindset so that you don't apply the mistakes that, or you don't do the mistakes that I have done. All right, and so here's a shitty looking slide where basically I'm kind of showing what high growth means. So this is me and my business partner, Davis. He was my school friend and still my main business partner. We are here, I think in 2012, on my parents' couch, drinking whiskey, thinking about how to start a business, and then 3-4 years later, this is our team picture from the Polish office. And like 2-3 years later from this, we had more pictures like this across Mexico, Denmark, Georgia, and so on and so forth. So that was the high growth. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's talk about the mistakes, right, or the mindsets. The number one, and not necessarily the most important, is just something that is very common, is giving away equity too quickly, right? Everybody here understands what I mean by when I say equity, yeah? Shares in the company, right? Giving away share of your company to other people too quickly. And ironically, when you want to build a business very quickly, one of the best ideas is to give shares in your business to other people so that they can help you grow it faster, right? Of course, it doesn't mean that you can have a shitty business model. You still have to have a great business model so you can scale it. But one of the best ideas is if you give other people shares in your business and they help you, right? The problem is, if you are kind of obsessing about growth like I was, then you can get in a situation where they're simply, you're giving up simply too much equity to people too quickly, right? And I'll talk about the situations in where this happens most often, but let me just go, because I think the slides are mixed up. Let me just go through my experience a little bit in more detail so that you understand the foundation of kind of where did I get my first mistakes and where does my experience come from. So The first company I started was back in 2012. Like I mentioned, with my then best friend, now my main business partner. It was called Cream Finance. Now it's called AvaFin. Raise your hand if you have heard of this company. All right, a few have. All right, perfect. So it's basically a consumer lending business where we provide consumer loans online. We do it across seven different countries. We sold it for over 50 million euros to a public bank in South Africa. The company now, this year, is going to do about 150 million in revenue. It's profitable, over 500 people employed. So this was the first business that I built, and my mistakes that I will talk about are basically based on my experience when building out this specific company. Because I was in my 20s, between my 20s and 30s, as I was building this business. And so that's going to be the reference point for me. Since then, since 2020, I stepped down from the management in AvaFin, in Cream Finance, and I've been focusing on, instead of building the businesses myself, being a CEO of the companies, my job is focusing on searching for very capable people, finding CEOs that will run the companies for me. I'm looking for business products. I'm looking for markets, maybe new business models. And then once I define that, let's say we're going to go into Spain and going to buy loan portfolios from banks, I look for a CEO, I give them shares, I invest equity money, and then these people run the businesses, not for me, but together with me. And so some of the successful companies, obviously I didn't list the shitty ones, the successful companies here, Money.jo, that's the biggest non-bank consumer lender in Jordan. It's doing this year close to 50 million euros in revenue. Then we have Esketit. It's a loans marketplace where investors can invest in my companies effectively. We have over 20,000 registered users there. NewSchool, that's basically a tech company where we help finance enterprises to launch their lending products, right? So that's what we focus on in the Middle East. Spanda Capital, that's a loans portfolio management company where we buy portfolios from banks, and then we try to collect more money than we paid for these portfolios, right? The last focus this year, and especially going forward for me, is going to be on buying companies. Instead of building stuff from scratch, building from ground up, I'm looking to buy businesses. We've done some of that in the past, but now it's a big focus for us. And so, yeah, deal size that we're looking at is 5 to 15 million in fintech, in lending, and so on. So that's kind of more for the future. So I've started companies effectively in around 15 different countries, employing over 1,000 people. And speaking of mistakes, you can see a lot of mistakes in this slide because I tried to put all the logos of these different businesses in one slide. And they look shitty, but here you go. At least they're there. All right, we went through this. Let's talk about then giving away equity too easily. So the number one classic category of where that happens is investors, right? So standard case, you start a company, you need 100,000 to either get to a minimum viable product, or you have that and you want to get further. And then let's say you give 15% of equity away in your company. Raise your hand if you have had situations like that, or if you've raised money from investors in general. All right, a few people, right? So that's not common here. Okay. So if you get to this situation where you need money from investors, the way to avoid a situation where you keep raising money and you keep giving away a lot of equity, which often happens, it's a standard thing, especially when you talk to VCs, in a couple of years, you might end up in a situation where you have less than half of your company because you have co-founders, you have employees that you give some shares to, and then you have these different investors, and then you have several rounds, right? A way to make sure you don't lose your own business is if you give convertible loans instead of shares. It's a technical thing. If you will want to understand more detail, ask me in a Q&A or ask me in the backstage. But effectively, you don't necessarily have to give shares. You can take a loan and then agree with the investor that you can give shares later on if the business is successful. That's a standard tool. It happens, and that's a way to keep more equity to yourself as a startup investor. All right, next category is advisors. So have you had a situation where you need to pay an advisor, let's say a legal consultant, 10, 20, 30,000, 50,000 for some complicated legal work, or if you had to build a website and there's like, a good programmer that charges you, I don't know, 50K and you don't have the money. Have you had that situation? Nobody. Wow, okay. So, situation is based on a case where you don't have the money to pay somebody and you pay shares, right? I've done that a lot, hence it's one of the mistakes I've put up. And a way to avoid it is if you have people that you want to pay but you pay in shares, you agree to buy back those shares at a later date when the company grows. And so that, again, you have some optionality to be able to keep more equity in your company as the company is growing quickly, right? Okay, key employees, that's another super useful and valid situation to give your shares, right? You have, executives, smart people that want to work in your company, and you cannot pay them a full salary. So let's say you pay half the market price. Let's say the salary is 5,000, you pay 2.5, and then the rest you give in shares. The situation often happens is that you pay these employees in shares too much, because 3 years down the line, either the employee is no longer meeting the needs of the business, maybe big business grows in a different direction or it grows very quickly, and then you're stuck with a situation where you have somebody that you gave 10% equity, right, like a programmer. Yes, you assume there's going to be a CTO for the next 10 years. But 2 years down the line, they no longer work for the company. So a way to avoid that is by vesting the shares. Have you heard of the term vesting? All right. Some of you have, some not. Vesting is simply where you say, okay, I'll give you 10% share in the company. You're going to be my head of IT. But I'll give you that 10% over a 5-year period, so let's split it in 2% chunks. Every year, 2% is vesting. It goes to you, it goes to the employee, right? And the good thing is, if in year 3, the CTO is no longer good for the business, or you fire, or you have an agreement, or a disagreement, or something like that, they only keep what they got, but you don't give more shares for the performance that person no longer provides to the company. So, in essence, what I wanted you to take away from this slide is to compare the speed of growth to the cost of growth. In the media and everybody in conferences likes to talk about companies growing very fast. Growth costs money, right? So it's oftentimes smarter to kind of grow a bit slower, keep equity in the company, but then you can make sure that you can be richer in the long term. Let me give a quick example, because I need to go fast, of Lyft. Have you heard of a company called Lyft? Yeah. So basically, of those that you haven't, it was the biggest competitor to Uber, right? Now, it's in terms of size, I think it's similar to Bolt. So Lyft started at the same time as Uber did. It was not as successful. It was like a runner-up, but still a massively big business. They did an IPO in 2019, $25 billion market cap. Insane, right? Now it dropped, to $5 billion, but it's still a massive company. The story with this business, why it's actually popular, is these two guys clapping hands. They're the founders of Lyft. In order to grow this business so quickly and catch up with Uber as it was expanding so aggressively, they had to sell so much stake and raise so much money that they ended up with 1% stake in the company each, where you have a business that's massive. It's like top 2,000 private companies in the world by market cap, right? It's an insane success story by any measure. But you own less than 1% in the company as a founder. And that's pretty painful and that's pretty crazy. So there's examples like this around. All right, chasing too many priorities, this is my specialty. 15 different projects running around. Everything seems important, nothing gets done. Can you relate to this? All right, cool, good. The problem for me, why that happened largely, was my lack of experience in business, especially in the beginning. But it's still the case, where I just didn't know what really matters and what doesn't, because I thought everything that happens in a business is a life or death question. Yeah? If I don't have enough money to pay employees, have you had that situation? Okay. I thought I'm going to fucking shit my pants and they're going to all leave my company if I don't pay them on time, right? Which wasn't the case. I mean, if you talk to them, they understand and you work together. Or for example, if you get sued. Have you been sued in court? Anybody? All right, some people. Lucky ones, good luck. I've been sued, right? And then I thought I'm gonna go to jail the next day after receiving this court letter, yeah? And it's not the case. You understand that some things matter and some things don't. And the way I want you to think about it is to apply the Pareto principle. You know what's Pareto principle? All right, 80% of the results are driven by 20% of inputs. This works in business like a charm, like any country, any business model, and so on and so forth. Think about what 20% of inputs in your company produces the 80% of the results, and you will find, if you haven't done that, you will find that it's, especially for the first time, it's kind of tricky to figure out what is it exactly that you should be focusing on that makes the biggest difference for the business. And what's even trickier is to keep focusing on those important things, right? Because there's so many cool stuff, you know, running around that requires your attention. So this company, again, quick example, Creditech. Have you heard of Creditech? Probably not. All right, because they're bankrupt. So Creditech was basically in 2015-16 like Revolut is now. Yeah? It was the best funded, hottest, coolest fintech startup in Europe, founded in Germany. They were also providing loans. They were a direct competitor to us, raised hundreds of millions in VC funding. At one point, they had $500 million market cap. Yeah? And if I thought I'm chasing different priorities and I'm going all over the place, and these fucking guys did it at another level, right? They were, you know, launching 5 different markets in 1 year, 6 different countries, like growing number of people, employees, like by the hundreds, yes, all over the place. And so while that was happening, they did all these cool infographics about how cool they are, how quickly they're growing. They were just focusing on too many things. And even with those hundreds of millions in funding, it didn't help them, and eventually, because they didn't focus on the things that matter, scoring, credit risk management, technology, and things like that, they went under during COVID, right? And my problem, I was always looking up to them and thinking, fuck, man, like they're doing all these different products, they're on the stages, they're fundraising, they're doing all these cool things, and I should do that as well, right? So I had this FOMO that I should catch up to these types of companies. And the only solution is, for me, was just with time to understand that, you know, you never know what really happens inside of the company, and you shouldn't focus on others. You should just focus on what works for your business. All right, so next one, doing everything myself. Yeah, so this I think is the biggest reason why, especially small and medium companies stay small, is because the business owners, they actually like this position of being the go-to person, of being the most important one, the one that knows more stuff and can just like fix problems, yes? So oftentimes that is the real problem, the real risk. For me, it was more like an ego issue. I was just thinking that I can do a better job than most people around me, and that was actually true, not because I was so fucking awesome, but people around me, they were just young, inexperienced, they were not like super sharp and special, right? So the problem of always trying to fix stuff yourself, always trying to do everything yourself in a small, medium business, the only solution to that is if you start focusing on delegating and you start focusing on searching, like purposefully, consciously searching for very capable people, yeah? Once you start finding these people that are better than you in certain areas, your whole kind of business reality changes. My delegation story started with, let's see if, yeah, with this guy, Patrick. So this is my co-founder, Davis. Patrick, he's the one that is now running AvaFin, the first company I built. So he was a guy, actually Davis met him randomly in Prague as we were launching the market there. We started to use him as a consultant. We realized he's like super smart, super sharp. Then we gave him more jobs in the company, and eventually in 2020, he took over as a CEO. He was like, I don't know, like 28 when he took over as CEO. Extremely sharp guy. He was the first guy that I met, and I understood this fucking guy is smarter than me. And he has the same work ethic, the same discipline as a founder has. And he can combine big picture thinking with very detailed, kind of narrowed focus on little things. Yeah? And when I met him, that's when I started believing that you can actually delegate and you can be sure that other people will do better stuff than you can do, right? And that didn't come from, you know, just reading HR books about delegation. It came from meeting people that are actually better. And since then, my focus is largely on looking for really capable CEOs, really capable executives. Okay. All right, last slide, forgetting to be selfish. So this word is maybe a bit weird, not clear what I mean by this. And what I mean by this is, if you only focus on building your business, building the company, always putting company first, or the needs of the company first, and your personal needs as a business owner second, then if you hit this high growth phase, you might end up in a situation where you are a slave to your company and you're working for your company instead of the other way around, even though your intention was completely different, right? And I'll explain how that happens. So I would assume a lot of you people here are really dedicating your life to your business. Maybe yes, maybe no. Raise your hands if you're like sacrificing a lot of your life to your company. All right, so basically, yeah, majority of you can relate to this. If you think, and if you have this mindset that, okay, I'm going to sacrifice my life for the business, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it takes, and the company grows big, successful, rich, whatever the success definition for you is, then that automatically means that I will be rich as a business owner. The problem is it doesn't work like that. Yeah? It doesn't work like that because unless you have enough money and you have enough control in the business that you have 50%, 60, 100% of the business, once it's grown successful, unless you are in that luxury position, which most people are very rarely are in, you will have a situation where you take on other investors, you share equity with your co-founders, you, God forbid, are in a regulated business and the regulator tells you what to do. So there's all these stakeholders in the company that you've built, and you end up being just one piece of the puzzle, yeah? And so this is where you have to be careful in terms of like this academic expression. There's a difference between value creation, when you build a business and you build value, and value extraction, yes? I think it's a very good distinction, value creation and value extraction. Value extraction is when you protect your rights as a business owner, yeah? And I'll talk about that in more detail. So the best example was my company, my first experience, where basically, you can check this out. So in 7 or 8-ish years, we built a business that's doing 100 million in revenue, yeah? And it's profitable, 5, 10 plus million net profits per year. We have 12 different shareholders, family office, VC, a public bank, all these different types of people, employees that own the stock. We are regulated in different countries with central bank regulation and so on and so forth. When I stepped down from the CEO role in 2020, and before we sold the business, which was recently in 2023, there were a number of years where the company was effectively doing 100 million plus in revenue. It was generating net profits, and we got paid fuck all as owners of the business and founders of the business. We didn't get paid dividends, and we didn't get paid any salary. There was independent management already in place, which had the right agenda, which was to grow the company, to keep as much equity and as much capital into the business to make the business more safe. And we had a big bank that didn't need the dividends, right? So we two guys were there stuck with this relatively big company and getting paid nothing until we sold the company, yeah? And so the reason for that was we gave up so much control and we grew so quickly, and we didn't know that we have to more precisely focus on our rights as shareholders. And so what's the solution? So the solution is, I mentioned this in the previous conference, is to have a very strong shareholder agreement. Any idea what shareholder agreement is? Raise your hand. All right. Raise your hand of those people that have a shareholder agreement in your company. Few. Like less than 3% of the audience. So this is relevant. So when you have a business, have a shareholder agreement where you list things, decision-making power, who decides when dividends get paid, how do you approve budgets in your company, how do you decide whether you're going to sell or not sell the company, what happens if one of the co-founders wants to step out or sell the business. All of these things, any good lawyer will tell you, I'm just mentioning kind of high-level examples. You need to put into a shareholder agreement, and you need to really spend time and energy protecting your position in the shareholder agreement. Otherwise, you're going to sacrifice your life, build out the business, it hopefully becomes successful, but then you realize, fuck, I've done so many mistakes not protecting my rights that I don't have a position where I can monetize and get money out of the company. Yeah? There's other technicalities of how you can do this. Another one is having different share classes. So let's say founders have a share class A, which gives them more rights in deciding about the company than, let's say, investors or advisors that have some shares. They have share class B, where they don't have any rights to approve dividends, they don't have any rights to approve any sale of the company or anything like that. So there's various ways of how to protect yourself as a shareholder. I think that's it. My time is over. If you like this content, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's going to make my weekend very happy. Thank you.